The Republic of Kazakhstan, a vast country full of contrasts. Some unique nooks remain safe here, where the voice of pure nature sounds as harmoniously and naturally as hundreds and thousands of years ago. One of such places is the Aksu-Zhabagly Reserve, which looks like a real geographical map comprising several high-altitude rings. While traveling around them, investigators watch and observe how the climate, the relief, and the whole landscape of the West Tian changes. Aksu-Zhabagly, the oldest reserve of Kazakhstan. Founded in 1926 and covering an area of 85,574 hectares, the fauna comprised 338 vertebrate species and over 5,000 invertebrate species. The flora is made up of about 1,700 plant species. We commence our familiarity with Aksu-Zhabagly from a mountainous zone. Then we will gradually descend. In this way, the distance will become closer, the vague become clearer, and the difference between primeval nature and the human environment sharply be revealed. Anatoly Kovshar is a doctor of biological sciences and a professor ornithologist. His first scientific steps were taken here in Aksu-Zhabagly, and he knows every nook of this reserve very well. Danyar Aralbaev, an official at the reserve, starts his journey with him. Danyar is a reliable assistant, a person who knows all the secrets of mountain traveling. The Alpine Range. Its boundary begins at 3,000 meters above sea level. I recommend that we start familiarizing ourselves with the Aksu-Zhabagly Reserve from this point called the Cascabel Pass. Its absolute height is 3,001 meters above sea level. From here, glaciers and snowfields where the rivers Aksu and Zhabagly take their sources are well seen. The rivers give the reserve its name. It gives the impression that there is no life in it, but this impression is erroneous. Sometimes mountain goats, or the tauteke as they are known here, can be seen making their way up the mountain sides. Snow leopards are also occasionally encountered here, although no one has seen them in the reserve for quite a long time now. But the leopard is like a ghost. You can only guess its presence by the traces it occasionally leaves. Mountain ridges like the crests of waves have become dead still forever. While staring at them for a long time, a desire to discover colors that the human is accustomed to sharply awakes in you. This plant is Siphoin spiny. It is not as tender as it might seem at first glance. Its pillar-looking shape helps the Siphoin to retain resistance, while it enables it to accumulate moisture. Besides, the plant does not always look so decent. In the summer, the Siphoin transforms, becoming much smarter. This green carpet on stone steps is the Turkestan juniper. This humifuse bush is a close relative of the long, bold juniper, the main difference between them being their heights and shapes. The strong winds constantly blow high up in the mountains. These plants can do nothing except resign themselves to nature's will and nestle themselves against the rocks. Go 10-15 meters down and you will see quite a different picture, an alpine lawn. This is a way of compensating for the inconveniences created by nature at such high altitudes. Summer colors are in play here till late autumn. From the Cascabel Pass, we will go to the valley of the Ruba Cascabel. This is by no means a less remarkable spot on the Alpine Range. Its snowfields in the form of a lozenge is seen from a distance and serve as a landmark. To get into Cascabel, you first need to descend to the subalpine ring zone. The subalpine ring, height between 2,200 and 3,000 meters above sea level. This is a mountain at the top of Baidaksai that is typical of the subalpine ring. One of the unforgettable sights here is the morning mist, when nature still reminds of the winter, but when its motherly summer instincts have already woken up. Mists develop in a matter of seconds. You move as though in a kind of a hollow air inside a huge mysterious sphere. In this milky abyss, every inhabitant in the reserve seems to be a brilliant newcomer. The Arhar mountain goat. Habitat, the alpine and subalpine rings. Its heat period is November and its delivery period is April. It has been recorded in the Red Book of Kazakhstan. Here, we met a single female Arhar mountain goat at the beginning of the summer. We failed to keep an eye on it for quite a long time. The animal disappeared quickly, leaving unforgettable impressions of the beauty of its motion in our memory. The most terrible ordeal for the Tanshan Arhar is a winter copious with snow. During such periods, the animals are more prone to death. Shortage of fodder tax them onto the beasts of prey and poachers. The next ridge is Boraldai in the Karatau Mountains, to which a part of the Arhars migrate, and is not included in the Aksu-Zhabagly Reserve zone. Today, the fate of these animals in many respects depends on the solution to these problems. The narrow rocky mountain path is difficult to go by and quite unsafe, but there's no other way. This is the reserve. On its territory, you can advance only along the path that has been carved out by nature once and for all. The fewer traces of the presence of humans here provides more chances to keep nature in its primeval condition. The Tianshan, or white claw bear. Habitat, variable depending on the season. The rarest and not a numerous subspecies among the brown bears. Registered in the Red Book of Kazakhstan. In the summer, the Tianshan bear becomes the proprietor of the subalpine ring as it enjoys its full rights. In the thick bushes of humifused juniper, it feels very comfortable. In spring, it goes out to dry partite meadows. Here, tulip bulbs attracts its attention, which is its beloved delicacy. In the autumn, apple trees and junipers are in the menu of the Tianshan bear. During that time, it goes below the boundary of the subalpine ring. These are traces of the bear. They look like those of a human being. And this, one might say, is a scientific material. The bear's droppings, they are really fresh. By eating fruit and coneberries of juniper and leaving its droppings, the bear thus decimates the seeds around the territory, which survive in this medium and then produce young crops thereupon. But the bear is not a vegetarian. It sometimes hunts marmots. This hole belongs to a long-tailed marmot. In the reserve, this marmot species is the only one that is typical of the West Tianshan and Altai Pamirs. To dig out our long-tailed marmot from such a hole is practically impossible. But for a bear disappointed of this failed try, this is only an episode of its life. The biological cycles recurring from year to year are quite another matter. For example, during the breeding period. During this period, everything yields to basic animal instincts and precede its type. We are now crossing the last meters of the dry partite meadows of the subalpine ring. Cascabel awaits us. On our way, we will come across areas as though someone has plowed the soil again. These are traces of wild boars. They recently have increased in number. Cascabel. This mountain range is in the zone of the alpine ring. The boundary is between 3,000 and 3,800 meters above sea level. We are quite close to our target. Here, it is the known snow field that from afar serves as the landmark of Cascabel. We are going to observe one of the highest and ancient galleries in the world. The Tautike, or mountain goat. An ancient painter managed to convey both the shape and distinctive pose of this animal. And here is a whole composition. A hunter aims at a mountain goat. On another drawing, you can see a woman seeing a hunter off. What does these drawings mean? I wonder. A monster holds the hunter by the hair. Is it an ancient painter's fantasy product, or the incarnation of danger or fear? Ancient painters left a great deal of mystery on these stones for their descendants. One of them is the image of animals that never existed here. Much of all this will remain a mystery for us. We'll never know why these drawings were made, but there's no doubt that 5,000 to 7,000 years ago, the ancient human began looking at the visual environment in a new way. Gradually, the qualities of a painter, philosopher, and traveler grew in him. Again, we have to descend as if along a flight of stairs in a house. Here is an example of symbiosis, the life of two kinds of plants. Caprifoil, a deciduous bush, has found its place among the needles of a juniper, and the juniper has given it the possibility to grow in these conditions. We are now crossing the boundary of the next high altitude level of the reserve. The Juniper Meadow Steppe Ring. This boundary begins from 1,300 meters above sea level. There is the widest landscape palette in this high altitude ring, with fescue steppes, tugai bushes, and dry partite meadows, as well as mountain semi-savannas, grains, and motley grass, where a vegetative duet, ferule prangos, prevails. And still the biggest richness and the most typical token are the juniper bushes. Juniper, the principle of soil conservation, water accumulation, and curative element of the West Yangshan. Zarafshan juniper is registered in the Red Book of Kazakhstan. In the Middle Mountains, the humifuse juniper passes on the baton to a long-bowed juniper. It also gives trouble to many dwellers in this place. The shady forest herbs hide under its thick canopy. On its branches, some birds, insects, and even certain beasts find shelter. The juniper forest is a particular world where everything is deeply united and twisted between each other. Should the junipers vanish, wind, rain, and melted ice will erode the whole fertile soil layer. The lives of many plants and animals in Western Shan are in great peril. There are many other plants in the Juniper Meadow Steppe ring that decorate the nature here and are of huge interest to science. Among them are the following plants: forget-me-nots, Morins cocanicus, and Dictamnus angustifolius. The Talas birch. This endemic plant grows only in the Kazakhstani part of Western Shan. This tree that has positioned its strong taut body under the rock is the so-called Caucasian frame or iron tree. It got its name thanks to its solid hard wood. Its age might be calculated in dozens of millions of years. It is a truly ancient inhabitant of our planet. An evaluation of any ecosystem is its biodiversity. Its measurement is information embedded in the huge world of nature, and this resource is invaluable. The tulip, a perennial bulb plant of the liliaceous family. Selective material. Greig and Kaufman tulips are registered in the Red Book of Kazakhstan. For many investigators coming to Aksu-Zhabagly from other countries, the tulip is the symbol of the reserve. Today, tulips of Aksu-Zhabagly are going through the second wave of increased interest from foreign scientists. A British ecologist from the Cascabel Voluntary Service came here for the first time in spring during the blooming period of tulips. He was overwhelmed by their beauty. The first boom was observed over 150 years ago when Russian botanists on a Turkestan expedition sent tulip flower bulbs to Holland, which have become for the Dutch flower grower a new material of selection. The names of the tulips remind us of the events of those years. The Kaufman tulip was named after the first governor of Hiva, Kaufman. And this tulip, with distinctive black and violet specks on the leaves and a bright scarlet color, the Greig tulip, got its name thanks to Samuel Greig, the chairman of the Russian Imperial Horticultural Society. Everyone who has at least once seen these tulips will definitely take note of the fact that the flowers growing close to virgin nature give off a peculiar kind of music. Life is in motion everywhere, in the air, on earth, underwater, and in rocks. The Tautikea, a mountain goat, habitat, the hard canyons between the rings of the Juniper meadow steppe and cornfields. The heat period is December. Delivery period is in the second half of May. At the Aksu waterfall, from spring to late autumn, we see the Tautikea family more than once. These animals make themselves feel at home within the high altitude ring of the reserve. But here, they have a special home, a kind of maternity home. In spring, the females of the Tautikea family come down to give birth here. This place is the most suitable and convenient for the raising of their offspring. The turbulent waterfall and daunting rocks, belted by impetuous rivers, will hardly permit anyone to ascend the mountain at this spot. The Tautikeas themselves could be fighting for their lives and those of their offspring here. Their sense organs are well developed. It is difficult to say if they have better eyesight, hearing, or sense of smell. Besides, they are notable for their extreme caution. There is a patrol in every drove. Its duties are to protect and warn of danger. If an unbidden guest falls within sight, the patrol keeps an eye on it. It will stand motionless as a statue while the rest go to a much secured place. Such mode of life was embedded in the Takas right from the first days of their lives. It is great luck that there are still such reserved nooks as the Aksu-Zhabagly, where nothing daunts the Tautikea. This tract is called Darbaza, which means gates. Unique birds live in this unique place. For example, the bluebird. It makes its nest on these rocks. If we are lucky, we will see its nest. This bird looks like a black bird, but the difference lies in its dark blue color. Usually, the bluebird makes its nest in mountain ravines and canyons close to waterfalls and rivers. It is brisk and is constantly in motion. It freezes only for an instant, and it bends its head to one side at the same time as if listening to something. Both the Darbaza tract and the Aksu Canyon might be added to the sort of places of interest not only of the reserve, but also of the whole West Tianshan. The Aksu Canyon is a temple of nature, over which it has worked for millions of years. Formerly, there used to be an ancient sea here, as well as on the whole territory of the reserve. It is easily seen on the southern mountain slopes. If your ability to fantasize is developed enough, you will see splashing sea waves here. Now, Professor Kopshar will show the nest of a rock nuthatch, a bird that can be termed the feathery architect and designer. I have known this nest for over 40 years. Look here, its shape looks like a jug with its entrance here. To make such a nest, the nuthatch chooses natural hollows and covers them with clay. Sometimes the whole structure weighs up to 20 kilograms. And while the nest is damp, it glues onto its walls the upper wings of beetles, butterflies, and other insects. Sometimes it sparkles like an icon. In the mountain reserve of Aksu Canyon, large birds of prey, namely the golden eagle, the bearded vulture, the white-headed vulture, and the brown griffin, make their nests here. But to avoid their nesting places is a big problem. We have to estimate the inaccessibility of these birds and at the same time their vulnerability. Before leaving this marvelous place, we will observe the Aksu River for some time, how it carries its turbulent waters along the canyon to the bottom. And this will bring us to the origins of the environment. We have traveled from the top downwards and crossed 3 high-altitude rings of Aksu-Zhabagly: the alpine, the subalpine, and the meadow steppe. Further, there is a mountain ring where there are human settlements. It is well seen from this pass. It is difficult to imagine that once steppes used to thrive here, rich with vegetation and wild animals. This expanse of nature is dramatically reduced. The reserve goes back up into the mountains, but scientists conduct their research here as well. This gap on the right between Jhabagly Mountains and on the left, Karatal Mountains, is called the Chokpak Gates. This place is used by birds in their mass flights. When the east wind Chokpak blows in spring, and the west wind Shimkien blows in the autumn, the birds fly through this area. Strong headwinds press them to the earth. Here, they get into the nets of the ornithological station. Scientists then take measurements, put rings on them, and release them. There are few such natural places that are suitable for taking measurements of migrant birds. Some naturalists therefore come here from other countries. They are the members of an amateur society called Bird Watcher. Their goal is to see rare kinds of birds and observe their habits. For example, these naturalists became eyewitnesses of an intriguing scenario when 2 species, the hobby and kestrel, of the same falcon family, didn't want to share their habitats with the other. Sometimes, in a similar fashion, man doesn't comprehend nature and intrudes into it, preventing its natural course of development. Meanwhile, the strength and power of life on Earth is in its variety and the interdependence of all its diverse forms. Aksu-Zhabagly, the life reservoir of West Tanshan, proves it.